Former U.S. President Donald Trump braces for what he thinks will be a tough week. Trump has raised calls for protests, saying that he expects to be arrested. He says that he expects the Manhattan District Attorney to unleash criminal charges against him over his role in paying hush money to adult film star Stormy Daniels. Trump claims that he will be arrested on Tuesday. If true, he would be the first former president to face criminal charges, and it could impact his chances of contesting for the White House in 2024. Trump issued a call to action on his social media platform Truth Social, urging his supporters to hold protests. His opponents have termed his call as echoes of calls that led to the January 6 riots. Some reports say that online chat boxes include calls for armed protests to block law enforcement officers. Meanwhile, the New York Republicans Club has announced plans for a protest at an undisclosed location. Some in the Republican Party are also calculating the risk of supporting Trump's latest call. Kevin McCarthy called for calm if Trump is arrested, saying people should not hold protests on this case. His former vice president and a possible contender for the 2024 Republican nominee race, Mike Pence, has already called Trump's attitude during the Capitol riots as being reckless. The case for which Trump may get arrested dates back to 2016, where adult film star Stormy Daniels contacted media outlets in order to sell her alleged instance of encounter with Trump in 2006. But later on, she was allegedly contacted by Trump's lawyer, Michael Cohen, and Cohen paid her $130,000 to push the story under the carpet. However, this incident is not seen as a crime in many U.S. states, but in New York it is. When Trump reimbursed the amount to Cohen, the record for the payment says that it was a legal fee. And according to prosecutors, this amount to Trump falsifies business records, making it a possible criminal offense here in New York. Okay, for more on this, we are joined by Adele Nazarian. She's a media fellow at the Gould Institute for International Strategy. She's joining us live from Washington, D.C. Adele, thank you so much for joining us on WION. So, you know, this move by Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg seems politically motivated, to say the least. Many believe that it's going to be on a misdemeanor charge if Trump gets arrested. Others feel that he won't get arrested. And this is just all, again, a political ploy to get Donald Trump all the way down to the Manhattan courthouse for one reason or the other. What are your thoughts about this whole story?
Thank you. You know, it can go either way, as you said yourself. It could be that there is some inside information that we're not yet privy to that indicates they could very well be looking at arresting him tomorrow. And it could also be a call to arms. But what I will say is that if he is, in fact, arrested tomorrow, I believe it will only solidify and enhance his reelection prospects in 2024. And so I think that him perhaps calling for protests and putting out there on social media through his Truth Social platform that he does anticipate an arrest may also be a way to dissuade any authorities from actually going through with the arrest. So it's very, very tricky to say, especially with all the misinformation, unfortunately, that's being presented out there.
And you know what's interesting is this news came out, and it was according to multiple reports that Alvin Bragg, the district attorney of Manhattan, wants to arrest Donald Trump sometime next week. But then Donald Trump took hold of the story himself and said that I will be arrested on Tuesday. And he took control of the media narrative during the weekend. Do you think that perhaps these protests, if they do happen, they will be as big as the January 6th protests? Or do you think that Trump supporters are savvy enough to know that they shouldn't go out and be so vocal and loud in a blue state like New York because of the way they were treated in Washington?
You know, absolutely. I think that the recent videos that resurfaced of Jake Angeli, who was actually led into the Capitol building on the January 6th protests by Capitol police officers, and that the media presented it as if he broke in violently and trespassed. This is part of it. I think that the Trump supporters have realized that, unfortunately, or for whatever it is, the media has a duty and obligation to uphold the truth. And unfortunately, the media failed miserably, objectively speaking, and actually portraying an accurate depiction of what actually took place on January 6th. So I think those the recent footage that came out in support of what Angeli was saying, for example, and against what the media narrative was pushing, will dissuade a lot of protesters from coming out and perhaps thinking twice, 3 times before going into a building, even if they are being let in with open arms, because unfortunately the tape is what always matters, and that can be tampered with, as we've seen on numerous occasions. So I don't think that the protest will be, to answer your question, as large or as clamorous as the January 6th protests were. And I honestly think that it's not a good idea for the protests to take place, because even if they are done in a calm and peaceful manner, there is always the option and the possibility that the media will twist it and turn it into something that's different than what's actually the reality on the ground.
Absolutely. And we don't know who's going to be infiltrated in those protests, as we saw on January 6th as well. Adele, it is such a pleasure to speak with you always. Thank you for that insight. And I look forward to speaking to you again very soon on WION. Thanks for joining us.
Likewise.